So we're going to roll up our sleeves and work with the Chinese officials to demonstrate that canola should continue to flow safely from Canada to China.
The Canola Council of Canada says China has put a stop to all new purchases of canola seed. That's a big deal because about 40% of Canada's canola seed exports last year went to China, worth about $2.6 billion. Canada also sent $1 billion worth of canola oil to China and $500 million worth of canola meal. The move comes at a time of heightened tensions between the two countries following the arrest of Huawei CFO Meng Wanzhou in Vancouver back in December. So is China sending a political message by taking aim at Canadian crops? The CBC's Katie Simpson is here to tell us all about that. Hey, Katie.
Hi.
What do we know? Tell us the details about what China is saying, what Canada is saying about this stop, this whatever block of Canadian imports.
Here's how this all has played out so far. The Council of Canola, the Canadian Council of Canola, came forward with a statement yesterday saying their farmers are telling them, their exporters are telling them that Chinese buyers, those Chinese importers, they're not making any new purchases of Canadian canola. And that, of course, is very alarming to this council that deals with so many farmers. The concern there is that the Canadian canola may be tainted or may be impure, or there might be something wrong with it. There might be some sort of infestation. China has made these allegations about Canadian canola before, and they did about Richardson International, which is a very old, very well-respected Canadian exporter of canola, the largest in this country. We caught up today with the International Trade Minister, Jim Carr, and he says so far there's been no evidence that they've seen to support these Chinese claims.
We're aggressively pursuing an answer from the Chinese authorities about what is impure about our canola. We haven't had any answers to that question. If there's a problem, show us what that problem is, and we'll work together to solve it, as we have in the past. And if you can't produce any evidence, then let's just move on.
The conversation to resolve this issue is at the officials level. It's not at the ministerial level, but it's officials in Canada to officials in China. And it's important to note for our viewers that China has come up with concerns about Canadian canola in the past. Back in 2016, they were accused of manufacturing a crisis about canola just in time for Justin Trudeau's very first trip to China as Prime Minister. And as you remember, that was a big aspect of that trip to try to get that removed, to get those concerns and allow the canola to flow from Canada to China once again. So this is not the first time this has happened, but it's certainly a significant concern for the Canadian government and poses bigger picture concerns about how Canada deals with China if Canada wants to cozy up to China, to do more trade, to work with them on other issues, whether they can really trust China, because when things don't go China's way, issues seem to just pop on up.
And let's talk about that connection between what's happened, obviously, over the past few months between the two countries and whether or not or to what degree this is tied to that.
So the government is not going out there to directly say, we think this is retaliation for the arrest of Meng Wanzhou. As you mentioned, Canada arrested the Huawei executive back in December. China is very upset about this. And since that arrest back in December, China has detained 2 Canadians. They haven't been formally charged, but the accusations are around espionage. Canada says the accusations are unfounded and that their arrest is arbitrary, and it is believed to be linked to that issue right there. While Canada is not directly saying that, and neither is the Canola Council, they don't want to go there. A former ambassador to China, Guy Saint-Jacques, he is connecting those dots.
In my view, this is directly related to the pressure that they have put so far on the Kenyan government to release Mrs. Meng. We end up in a very difficult position, and again, it shows the extent to which China is ready to go.
One reason why Canada might not formally want to link these issues, what I'm told from a number of people I've spoken to on this issue, that if Canada does directly link this together, that it might put the Chinese, it might back them into the corner, and that they might not want to resolve this issue, because if the Meng issue is not resolved and they do resolve the canola issue, it might make the Chinese look weak. And saving face is something that's very important to the Chinese government. So that could be why the Canadian government is not going to go there, and they're going to try and have this conversation on the merits of what the Chinese are alleging.
Okay, thanks so much, Katie. Marie-Claude Bibeau is the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food. She joins me from Plessisville, Quebec. Hi, Minister. Nice to see you. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Minister, the Council of Canada says China has stopped buying Canadian canola seed. Have you spoken with your counterpart in China or anyone in the Chinese government about this?
Not directly, but I can tell you that my officials at the Canadian Food Inspection Agency are having a regular conversation with their counterparts. We really want to focus on a science-based approach, science-based discussion, because we believe that it's the best way to find a long-term solution to that.
Do you believe, Minister, that the reason that China is no longer importing canola seed is because of science or something else?
Well, the information we have from them is that they have found some kind of pest in one shipment of canola. So from our side, obviously, we returned to our samples to make sure that the first analysis we've done were still, good, because it's very important for us to know. All the analysis we've done just confirmed that we are still offering a very high quality canola. There was no irregularities in this shipment. So this is why we are asking the Chinese officials and scientists to share the information with us so we can understand and make sure that we can pursue the exportation of our products over there.
If there were no irregularities in the shipment, do you believe that the reason that China has made this decision is because of the detainment of Huawei CFO Meng Wanzhou?
Well, I haven't received any indication on this matter. Obviously, I'm working closely with the Minister of International Trade and Diversification. But really, as the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food, my responsibility is really to make sure that our inspection process is good, and it is. I'm very confident on all the analysis we've done, and that the fact that our product is really high quality, and this is why it's very, very important to pursue the discussion on this level.
But I guess my question is, it seems very unrealistic if everything that you're saying is true around the science and the veracity of what Canada is shipping out. That, given the backdrop against which this is happening, the detainment of 2 Canadians, the detainment of Meng Wanzhou in Canada facing extradition to the United States, I just want to be clear, your government is drawing no link between the two?
We are working, as we do in many files, as a whole of government. Working together, many ministers looking at their responsibilities. But for the benefit of all our agricultural and agri-food products that are exported, it's very important that Canada stands behind very solid scientific ground to make sure that our inspection systems are recognized as being very, very strong. And this is why it is so important, not only for this particular case, but for our whole agricultural industry to stay firm on scientific ground.
In a statement, Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe said that he has requested the federal government, quote, elevate their engagement to a diplomatic level to rectify this situation as soon as possible. Are you going to do that?
Well, I hear his message, and I can tell you that we are working on different fronts. And as I said earlier, we are working together with Global Affairs Canada, for example. But once again, we have to find a scientific-based approach solution, because it is very important for all the industries which are exporting.
Do you plan to reach out to your Chinese counterpart?
At the right moment.
So when will that be?
I can't tell you yet.
Why not?
Because I think we still have space for scientific-based discussion with their officials, their scientific people responsible for that, with our people at the department and at the the CFI, Canadian Food Inspection Agency.
I ask at what point, because this is 40% of Canadian exports go to this one market. This will have a devastating effect. We are hearing from canola farmers across this country. At what point is it time to elevate the interactions with the Chinese government?
I really want to tell you that I'm taking this matter very, very seriously, and we are deploying our best approach to find a long-term solution. And I mean, this is important, but we want to make it to find a way that will be sustainable for the canola industry and others. And obviously we also have trade commissioners in different countries who are also looking at various markets, and we want to export, and we want to also open different markets and diversify for the best of our producers and processors here in Canada.
Until a solution, Minister, is reached, is your government open to relief for farmers who will be hit by this?
I'm not at this stage yet. I still believe that we can find a scientific-based solution.
At what stage, Minister, will relief become a consideration? How long will canola farmers, have to feel the effects of this ban on their product, essentially, from China before the government steps in to help?
Well, I will stay engaged with all the stakeholders, with the industry, to have this open conversation with them. And I was traveling in the West last week, and they were really supporting the idea of pushing further this scientific-based approach. They also believe that it's the best solution for all the industry, and I will keep them posted, and as well as my counterparts in the provinces who are the most affected by the situation.
With respect, Minister, last week there was one producer, one sort of company impacted by this decision by China. It has now become totally widespread. The situation this week is much different than last week. When will you start considering relief? Well,
the information from the Government of Canada, we have not received any indication, confirmation of that, but I understand that some of our partners did have some information saying that they wouldn't, their products wouldn't get through in China. So I will keep engaging with them, because we already do, and we'll find the best solution together. I just have to ask one final question, Minister. I understand what you're saying about the possibility of a scientific solution, but I'm wondering if you understand how that might be confusing to a lot of people who have watched everything play out with China. Whether right or wrong, we know that it's hard to believe it's a coincidence that two Canadian men have been detained in China for a number of months following Meng Wanzhou's arrest here in Canada. Do you understand, I guess, how your explanation that science may save the day here would fall on deaf ears to many of the people in this country whose livelihoods depend on this? I want to assure Canadians that this situation is very serious. We all work in different ways. I mean, from the Minister Freeland as Minister of Foreign Affairs, she follows the diplomatic file very carefully. I work on the science-based approach. We work together, but also for the safety or the protection of these men. We also have to be careful in the way we approach this situation. As far as I know, as far as I'm concerned as the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food, there are no relation to be made, and it's important that I keep working to find a science-based solution on this specific matter. All right, thank you so much, Minister Bibeau. I really appreciate your time this evening. Thank you. Ian Boxall is a fourth-generation farmer and canola grower. He's also the vice president of the Agricultural Producers Association of Saskatchewan. Unfortunately, he was to join us via FaceTime, but we're having some difficulties with the video connection, so he's instead joining us by phone from Tisdale, Saskatchewan. Hi, Mr. Boxall. Nice to see you. Thanks for your time. Or hear you, I should say.
Thank you very much.
So let me start off by asking you about what your reaction was. How big of an impact does this decision have on you?
It's a big issue. And this isn't just an issue for rural Canada or Western Canada. Canola exports contribute $25 billion to the Canadian economy and hundreds of thousands of jobs, right? It's producers' number one cash crop. And the future viability of our sector depends on trade access and trade normalcy.
Were you surprised that the decision went this far, that this is happening? I mean, I know last week one producer was affected. Obviously, it's a lot more widespread. Did you anticipate this escalation?
I think once they put some restrictions on Richardson near the end of March, I would hope that at that time our officials were working on this. But this is a big hit for producers and for Canadians.
Can I ask you to expand a bit on what you mean by big hit? I mean, I know that that you're about a month away from seeding in Tisdale. How much does that, like, how does this affect your production, your anticipated sales, all that kind of thing?
Well, I think we saw a fall in the market today of just over $14 a metric ton. So that's a pretty big hit. That 32 cents a bushel. That's for stuff for grain that isn't sold. And, farmers make their seeding plan based on agronomics, not economics. And, the plan is in place to grow these acres of canola, and the seed's been purchased and fertilizer inputs have bought, and the plan is in place. And to go and make wholesale changes to that now, it's just not feasible. So we need our policymakers to solve this issue and get these exports back going to our biggest importer of Canadian canola.
Do you think that this decision by China was a political one?
I don't know. I pride myself as a Canadian producer that we grow and deliver safe products. We also have a process that inspects all products while being loaded into ships. So if this is a quality issue, then show us so we can rectify that. And if it isn't a quality issue, then tell us what the issue is so we can also fix it. I just read that they're also looking at restricting cereals and pulses into China as well. So if it is a quality issue on canola, why is there potential for it to affect other products as well?